So on the unit circle, we have looked at all the angles that are multiples of pi over 3. We have looked at all the angles that are a multiple of pi over 4. And we've looked at all the angles that are a multiple of pi over 6. Now remember, some of the angles fall in more than one category. So for example, 2 pi over 3 is an angle that's both a multiple of pi over 6 and it's a multiple of pi over 3, okay? So if you put all of these angles that we've looked at together on one unit circle, you get all the angles of interest on the unit circle, and this is what it looks like. Here are all of the angles that have been put together, all the multiples of pi over 3, all the multiples of pi over 4, all the multiples of pi over 6, and they've been put on one unit circle, okay, in both degree measure and radian measure, okay? So if you go back to that first page and you look at the unit circle, these are all the angles that are on there, okay? And this is how we came up with them, okay? So hopefully this little exercise in doing what we just did, hopefully this helped you see where all the angles on the unit circle come from, okay? Hopefully this helped you kind of get an idea about how to draw radian measure. So for example, if I gave you a problem and I gave you a blank circle and I said, hey, draw me an angle that's 7 pi over 6 radians, okay? And you would say, okay, well, I'm going to take the top portion of my circle and I'm going to break it up into 6 equal parts. I'm going to take the bottom of my circle and break it up into 6 equal parts. And then I'm going to draw my angle in standard position. So I'm going to put the vertex at the origin and I'm going to put the initial side along the positive x-axis. And then I'm going to start rotating in the counterclockwise direction. And I'm going to trace out 7 of the sectors. And that will get me to an angle of 7 pi over 6 radians, okay? I want you to start thinking along those lines, okay? So doing this little exercise, hopefully, like I said, my goal was for you to start to understand where these angles on the unit circle came from, okay? Both in degrees and in radians. And also with this, I was hoping that this would help you understand radian measure better, particularly how to draw radian measure, okay? All right, there's one more thing I want to mention about the angles on the unit circle. Keep in mind, there are way more angles on the unit circle than what is listed here, okay? These are just the angles of interest on the unit circle. Every time you see a picture of the unit circle, these are the angles that you're going to see called out or emphasized, okay? You know, degrees, that come second nature to us. So if we're thinking in terms of degrees, you see 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, and so on. What about an angle like 88 degrees? Okay, it's on there somewhere. Okay, it's just not an angle of interest, but it still exists on the unit circle. So for example, you could draw in an angle of 88 degrees. It lives there on the unit circle somewhere. Okay, it's just not shown on the unit circle. Okay, because it's not a very interesting angle. Okay, so if you had to draw an angle of 88 degrees, you would have its origin at the you would have the vertex at the origin, and you would have the initial side lie along the positive x-axis. And then when it came time to draw in your terminal side, you're going to rotate counterclockwise and you're going to get pretty darn close to 90 degrees. Okay, so 88 degrees might be right there. Okay, so my point is there's tons and tons of angles on the unit circle. Okay, we only see a few of them. These are considered, the ones that we see are considered to be the important angles. Okay, but don't forget about the other angles. There are other angles out there as well. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do now, okay, now that we're done with this and we know where the angles come from on the unit circle, we are going to start talking coordinates. Okay, so for example, our next discussion will be, okay, we're going to rotate around the circle in a counterclockwise direction. Okay, and we're going to go to each of these angles. We'll start with 30 degrees here. Okay, and we're going to come up with the coordinates of the point of this point. Okay, so if you flip back to your unit circle, the one that's completed, okay, you saw all the angles, degree measure and radian measure, which we've already covered that. But the other thing you saw was that all of these points, okay, so like even the point at 45 degrees or the point at 60 degrees, the point that's on the circle at each of these angles, okay, it has an XY pair associated with it. Okay, it's the coordinates of that particular point, where it's located in the XY plane. Okay, so our next discussion is going to be how do we come up with these coordinates. Okay, so let's take a look in the next few videos.